This video is sponsored by Clash Royale. Ah, Monsters, Inc. What a perfect comfort movie from our childhoods. You know, it's probably the first movie I ever saw in cinemas. Can you imagine what it'd be like if you had a multi-dimensional door?
I have stolen a multi-dimensional door. Well, that was a close shave. I'm keeping this.
But yes, Monsters, Inc. is one of those perfect Pixar movies I can just never praise enough. Every single scene in this production feels meticulously crafted with a story that only seems to hit closer to home when you realize it's about an energy crisis and not just dimension-hopping monsters. But though I could easily talk your ear off about every moment in this movie, we're gonna focus today on the scene that has the most threads looping back to it. The start of the end for our Monsters, Inc. storyline and the floodgates of that second act depression every good tale follows. It's the point where Boo finally learns that her kitty is just an awful a monster as the rest of them. And also our big bad villain is established. Ha! You're not fooling me! The sequence begins with Sulley and Mike running through the halls, just trying to escape Monsters, Inc. after unveiling the conspiracy plot underlying the whole thing. See, among this energy crisis, Randall here is part of a plot that intends to kidnap human children from their world, bring them into the basement of the factory, and manually extract them for screams since, as we've heard,
kids these days, they just don't get scared like they used to.
There really is a thing of old Pixar movies really diving into absolute horror undertones. Genocide of a society of supers, and now literally child kidnapping and torture. I was 5. This scene of the aftermath on poor Fungus here, yes, his name is Fungus by the way, traumatized me a good bit in the big screen. Anyway, having noticed that by being the decoy for the child that they've been trying to return to their room, they're now on the run from Randall, until they're given a hint of what their next best move is.
Goodbye, Monsters, Inc. Goodbye, Mr. Waternoose.
What is a simple comic line from Mike is a genuine train of thought for Sulley, as he recognizes Mr. Waternoose, CEO of Monsters, Inc. entirely, could be there to solve their issues and address this Randall conspiracy. And so, it's our leading line into our next scene, after a small disagreement.
Follow me, I have an idea.
No.
Bringing us right back round to the simulation room. This calls back to the very first scene of the runtime, and it's this guy again training to scare a child unsuccessfully. It's where Waternoose is on location right now, and he's mimicking Mike's early no-no-nos with his own.
No. You're trying to scare the kid, not lull it to sleep.
Waternoose stepping closer to the camera as he gets slightly more heated over this guy. Dude's not a scarer, more like an entertainer. This just isn't the industry for him. Yet. But this beat as a whole...
I was going for a snake/ninja approach with a little hissing.
is a comedic sidestep to the otherwise pretty serious plot for the moment. Laugh at the doofier sides of this monster reality. It's a good way to have kids genuinely not so afraid of imaginary monsters in their closets. And it only continues more with...
It's all about presence, about how you enter the room. Mr. Waternoose!
Classic. Forget show, don't tell. Tell, and then immediately show as well. And you know, it seems to be quite a recurring character trait for Sulley, as much like in the sequel, he enters in quite the similar uproarious way.
And the...
I tried to run from it, but it picked me up with its mind powers and shook me like a doll.
Well, a kid flew right over me and blasted a car with its laser vision. It's true! I saw the whole thing! Did we see the same thing? To me, all these testimonies smell like a bunch of bullshit.
But anyway, they're here, and Waternoose is their last hope. If it wasn't for the fact that he's a little distracted.
No, sir, you don't understand. Now, show these monsters how it's done.
I can't. Camera remaining static and wide for the majority of the scene, apart from when Boo is involved, as Boo's location throughout this scene is very important to keep track of. Plus, it's kind of emblematic of how small Boo's world is. She's not aware of the economic infrastructural dilemmas of this monster society. She just knows she's in Mike's hands right now, as Sulley is warded away from her.
Pay attention, everyone. You're about to see the best in the business.
This is just more of the same gimmick, but I only noticed on this rewatch, Phlegm scooting off the stage in the background. I love it. And so the scene is set, literally. We're fully on this detour now, taking us back to that same lighting from the start of the movie. And as the simulation is booted to reset...
Night, sweetheart. Night, Mom.
Which is literally the first lines of the entire movie, by the way.
Good night, sweetheart. Night, Mom.
Boo immediately makes a dash out onto the scene now that they can see. You can imagine where this is going, and very on theme for Boo, since running out to where she's not supposed to be is like 90% of her personality, and the last 10% is sleeping.
Give us a big, loud roar.
Mr. Waternoose, there's no time for this!
And though subtle, there is that authoritative compositing with Waternoose's head high up in the frame and close to the camera, whilst the wide on Sulley is wide. Easy for us to spot Boo.
What are you waiting for? Roar!
But sir...
And as the obvious climax builds up, the camera shots get closer. Closer on Waternoose, closer on Sulley, and who knows where Boo is now, until...
Roar!
It is fully zoomed on Waternoose. There's that moment of hesitation from Sulley with that weird rumble of his. And then that roar covers all of the frame. This whole time, Sulley has been portrayed as a big, cuddly blue bear, caring for a sweet and tiny child, but the reality is, he is a monster. He has a career on being scary, and though we've never seen him actually do it with our own eyes, he's clearly the best in the business. It's an obvious point, but one Boo certainly has been unaware of this entire time, if not obvious from her reaction. It's the shattering moment that starts this entire depression arc, destroying the trust that Boo had for Sulley unconditionally and splitting the team apart. Plus, you can tell that Boo thought Sulley was aiming it at her, making it all the more traumatizing for her.
Well done, James.
Honestly, Boo's size difference could have led to a lot worse.
Where did she go? Did she turn invisible? Did she disappear? I just have no idea.
And at this halfway mark, here's a brief reminder to subscribe. We'll also be streaming here tomorrow the Monsters Inc. game, so brace yourselves for very few polygons and perhaps a strange wave of nostalgia from memory banks you've long forgotten. I certainly have. On with the video. And so, with Waternoose's directive followed through, he's a happy chap and ready to usher everyone out of the room. But while he's often heard only in the background organizing the troops, we will be seeing Sulley following up on Boo as she hides away in fear of her only friend here. Trying to hide as far away in a tight dark corner since she sees Sulley differently now. How she's supposed to see a big bear monster.
Boo.
And though it is heartbreaking for Sulley, he doesn't know what to say or what to do. He's going through a bit of an identity crisis, finally asking himself what it is he wants, or more so, what it is he doesn't. He doesn't want to be the villain of this story, he just wants to protect this child. And on the Waternoose front, he's done with his public business and clearly not entirely unaware, choosing to stay in the room after everyone's gone, carefully dictating who's in and who's out. And good choice, because...
The child!
The jig is up entirely, though to be fair, perhaps Mike and Sulley were intending to tell Waternoose this as well, as part of the plan. But there's certainly no going back from here. And so as Mike jumps in to attempt to explain the whole situation...
Sir, she isn't toxic. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me.
The conversation takes a backseat in the background, as the point of this moment now is between Sulley and Boo. Still unsure on what exactly it is Sulley should say or do to resolve the situation, but...
That wasn't real. It's just a... I was just...
Well, at least he's trying. But though so far he's only been left dejected and stunned at this miscommunication, this room is set up with the perfect self-reflection station to really ham in Sulley's realization. And Sulley's face drops as he finally gets to see himself in the moment, not relishing in a great victory that comes with praise and confetti and a giant number statistic, but lingering back to the room where it happens, where a childhood is traumatized for the sake of personal and societal gain. Sulley as a character is not a monster, but Sulley in reality is. And he's one of the worst of them all. This moment here will be the turning point in Sulley's understanding of himself and his place within this world.
She's a big hairy monster.
Oh, hey! You know, I figured this must happen eventually. I think you've entered the wrong room, mate. Tell you what, since you're already here, I might as well tell you about today's sponsor, Clash Royale. Clash Royale is a real-time multiplayer mobile game and one of the biggest there is, gaining over 100 million downloads, so you know it's good.
Yes, so you see, you have to knock the enemy king and princesses from their tower to defeat your opponents, and that way you earn crowns, trophies, and glory in the arena.
Look, the game's fully free to download, Sulley, available in iOS, Android, and iPad OS too. You have that in the monster dimension, don't you, in 2003? Right? It may be a spin-off of the Clash of Clans you may be more familiar with, but it stands its ground as extremely popular and highly reviewed too.
Collect and upgrade dozens of cards featuring the Clash of Clans troops, spells, and defenses, as well as the royales, princes, knights, baby dragons, and more.
All of these characters, strategies, and more can be found by using my link down in the description and trying out the game for yourself. Or you can use the QR code that's been on screen now and throughout. Thank you again to Clash Royale for sponsoring this video. Now on to the rest of it. You're still here? Sulley, it's been a solid 100 seconds. What are you still doing here? Isn't your work on some sort of timer like a pressurized Amazon worker? You haven't got time to be faffing around with me. Get out of here. You're in the wrong room. God. You guys don't even get iPhones for another 4 years, dude.
Now that we have her, he is trying to kill us!
And though the dialogue as Mike continues to exposite to Waternoose is now at least audible again, we're not meant to be paying express attention, as the real storytelling is coming from the visuals. And the very fact that Boo is now taking refuge behind the crab legs of Mr Waternoose now, a monster she literally met a few seconds ago over her giant kitty of the past couple days.
And we can take you to a secret lab, which is right here in this factory.
It is so simple cinematographically, it's just an exchange of looks in the middle of it all, but it is so simple in portraying the core betrayal felt at the center of this scene.
Oh, how could this happen?
But Waternoose is finally fully informed, distraught over the directions these turn of events have gone, seemingly positioned on their side, but of course you can read into this dialogue all the more, and it only becomes more clear on Waternoose's unique perspective as he asks,
Does anyone else know about this?
seeming now to want to tackle the trail that's coming off of these events. It could be a sign of underlining villainy, or as he tries to justify it to their faces,
This company can't afford any more bad publicity.
tactically cutting to a shot of Sulley over this point, as he would be seen as the bad publicity, carrying this child all around Monstropolis, as well as that he is seen as bad publicity right now in the eyes of Boo. I also think it works quite well to keep the smarter dialogue that the adults are more likely to process hidden under a visual cue that's more akin for children in the audience to digest without being bored. And so, what is Waternoose's idea for tackling this issue brought to him? Well, he's a professional, an authority figure to look up to, and he says,
Before we do anything else, let's take care of the child.
precisely what we all want to hear. Until you realize take care of can be a synonym for the opposite. But alas, even in the best case scenario, this means a bittersweet goodbye for Sulley and Boo, ending on awful terms despite everything they've been through. And clearly, that idea weighs on Sulley. But it is seemingly the right thing to do.
I'm sorry you boys got mixed up in this, especially you, James.
A genuine sounding piece of an apology. Saddened that his top scarer has to be handed this drama, but with an alternate undertone in there too. Saying goodbye to Sulley, a large sacrifice now as he's the top scarer.
Now we can set everything straight again for the good of the company.
And with his final line, it is yet another double entendre, being good for the company's public image to hide this small discrepancy, and also committing a crime for the sakes of the benefits the company will reap from it. And throughout, we just have Sulley's face. It's these huge expressions that really sell this scene, and all the others in the movie too, showing how it's much more than just the fur technology that made this character design so groundbreaking. Without these kind of expressions, could you imagine how some other scenes would have played out? But in case the fact that every line from Waternoose was clearly steeped in ulterior motives, this static shot of the door arrival helps to clue in the other people in the audience. The intention was never to send Boo back to her room, prim and perfect. It's yet another sequence of shoving her away without a care in this world.
Sir, that's not her door.
A mirroring of the same conversation Mike had with Sulley earlier, except back then he was gunning for the other team. But by now, he too cares about the safety of Boo.
I know. It's yours.
And there it is. Maybe that door closing shot was more intentional than we first thought. Not only does Waternoose know of the conspiracy hidden in the basement, but he is in cahoots with it too. Randall even ready to help with this final action, as the solution is to remove the whistleblowers and tackle the energy crisis head on. And thus ends our sequence of unveiling the true conspiracy beneath Monsters Incorporated. This seed of corruption and desperation against a changed world bleeds right the way up to the top. Emblematic of a company that refuses to adapt against new circumstances, it will push on to more immoral extremes just to make a profit. And these boys were just caught in the middle of it, a point that Waternoose genuinely is perturbed about. If only he could keep his best scarer too. But though this scene calls back to the first scene, pinpoints on Sulley's identity crisis, throws Boo through a loop, and reveals Waternoose as the big bad behind it all, it also acts as the shining example of Mike and Sulley's deteriorating connection. At the start, they are glued to each other, continuity error and all, but once the kid comes in, Sulley prioritizes her, forging out his own path and disregarding Mike more and more. Even the start of this scene has Sulley turning away from Mike's plan, much to his dismay.
No!
And at every step, Sulley has been the one in charge, blasting through with his overbearing presence, and every step has led them here, banished in the great outdoors. And so, to finalize our scene and move the plot forwards, Mike finally snaps.
You're still not listening!
And from there begins the big sad of Banishment. The severing of Mike and Sulley's connection as best friends, and abandonment too. But none of it could be achieved to reach these emotional heights if it wasn't for calling back to this simulation scene and bringing everything to a head here. The camera techniques weren't too grand. Everything's pretty static and standard for the most part, but nonetheless, this is where it all turns downhill. And you can't have a good resolution without the depressing slump first. So to me, this was the scene that changed Monsters Inc. Now, if only comedy could be used as a fuel source instead, none of this would have been a problem then.
I tell you, it's great to be here in your room. Where you from?
Your mum. Go on then, you monocle, tell us a joke.
Oh, I love kindergarten. Best 3 years of my life.
No, tell us a funny joke.
Dodgeball was the best. Oh, yeah, I was the fastest one out there. Of course, I was the ball, but I was the ball. See? All right.
For now, I'd best be ending it off here. My name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.